Earlier this month, Derrick Jaxn once again found himself pulled into a storm of public controversy and all too familiar position. For a man whose brand has always existed on the thin line between inspiration and hypocrisy, several women came forward online, sharing troubling allegations that reignited long-dormant conversations about his integrity, his motives, and the stark difference between the image he presents and the man he appears to be behind closed doors. For anyone who's followed Jaxn's career, the pattern feels uncomfortably predictable. He rises to prominence, preaching the gospel of accountability and emotional maturity, only to fall prey to the very temptations he warns others about. Derrick Jaxn, once considered the internet's relationship guru, built his empire on charm and carefully polished sincerity. He spoke directly to women, especially Black women, offering advice about how to recognize their worth, avoid toxic men, and demand respect in relationships. He positioned himself as the antidote to male irresponsibility, a modern-day moral compass wrapped in a muscular frame and confident smile. His short, car-recorded videos, often beginning with the phrase "now, ladies," gave the illusion of raw honesty, like a big brother telling hard truths. But behind that calm authority, critics have long suspected a different reality. A man more invested in performance than principle. That suspicion burst into full public view years ago when Derrick admitted to cheating on his wife, Derrick Jaxn. The scandal shook his brand to its core. Viewers who once saw him as a model of masculine accountability suddenly realized that his moral lessons were scripted lines in a long-running act. Derrick's appearance beside him in that infamous confession video, clutching his hand, wearing a bonnet, and speaking with quiet loyalty, only intensified the sense of unease. To many, she looked like a woman caught between love and manipulation, defending the very man who had broken her trust. Fast forward to now, and it seems history has found a way to repeat itself. The new allegations emerging online are not just echoes of the past, but extensions of it. This time, the name linked to the chaos is Pinky Love, a woman described by several blogs and social media users as someone Derrick had developed genuine feelings for. Their connection, according to sources, began like many modern romances, due through flirtatious exchanges, emotional validation, and promises whispered between two people who should have known better. But the relationship allegedly spiraled into something darker, leaving behind unanswered questions and broken boundaries. Though the details remain murky, the story has ignited fierce debate across platforms. Was Pinky Love another victim of Derrick's pattern of emotional manipulation? Or was she a willing participant in a mutual deception? Did she believe she was special, that she had succeeded where others failed, and only later realized she was one of many? In the age of social media, where image often overshadows truth, these questions become more than gossip. They expose the deep human hunger for authenticity, especially from those who build careers teaching it. For Derrick, the timing of this controversy could not be worse. After years of rebuilding his public image, rebranding his message, and subtly re-entering the digital dating advice scene, the resurgence of scandal threatens to unravel whatever credibility he's managed to salvage. Yet what makes the situation more fascinating and, to some, infuriating is his apparent ability to bounce back. No matter how many times his hypocrisy is exposed, a loyal portion of his audience continues to defend him. Some argue that his message still holds value even if the messenger is flawed. Others believe that his charisma and communication skills allow him to manipulate public sentiment effectively, turning each scandal into an opportunity for renewed attention. But there's something uniquely telling about this new chapter. Unlike the previous affair, which revolved around moral failure and marital betrayal, this situation seems to cut deeper. It's about the psychology of image, desire, and control. Derrick's entanglement with Pinky Love, if true, reveals not only a repeated pattern of infidelity but a deeper inability to detach his self-worth from external validation. The same man who preaches about emotional discipline appears addicted to the thrill of admiration. The power of being wanted by fans, followers, or romantic partners feeds the same ego that publicly demands humility. Observers have noted that Derrick often packages his introspection as self-growth, using carefully worded apologies and reflective tones that sound sincere but rarely lead to lasting change. When confronted, he speaks of lessons learned and new chapters. Yet his behavior continues to mirror the old habits that brought him down. It's a performance of repentance, not the reality of it. And because social media rewards engagement over integrity, his admissions of failure paradoxically strengthen his visibility. In a world where virality is currency, even shame can be monetized. Meanwhile, Derrick Jaxn, his former wife, remains a figure of quiet fascination. Many still recall her calm composure during interviews, her insistence that God would guide her through, and the way she eventually found her own voice after leaving him. Her transformation became symbolic of resilience. Yet, seeing Derrick back in headlines must reopen old wounds, especially when new stories suggest he hasn't learned from the pain he caused. The situation also speaks to something broader within influencer culture: the way personal morality becomes entangled with brand identity. Derrick Jaxn doesn't just sell advice, he sells the illusion of moral authority. His fans don't just listen for relationship tips, they look to him as a mirror of their own hopes and insecurities. When he fails, it challenges more than his credibility. It challenges the comfort of believing that wisdom can come packaged in a confident smile and neatly edited video clip. And perhaps that's the real tragedy here. Beyond the gossip, beyond the names and rumors, lies a cautionary tale about authenticity in the digital age. We live in a time where anyone can appear virtuous with the right lighting, the right caption, and the right tone of voice. But virtue without practice is just marketing. Derrick Jaxn's story, in all its messy contradictions, forces us to confront that truth. If the allegations about Pinky Love prove true, it won't just mark another chapter in Derrick's long record of moral contradictions. It will expose the fragile ecosystem of trust between influencers and their audiences. It will remind viewers that charisma can be both a gift and a weapon, and that charm often hides deeper wounds. For now, the full truth remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that Derrick Jaxn's public unraveling has become a mirror for our collective fascination with redemption and hypocrisy. We are drawn to watching people fall, not simply because we enjoy their downfall, but because it reflects our own complicated relationship with morality. We want to believe that people can change, but when someone keeps repeating the same mistakes, we are forced to ask whether change was ever their goal. To begin with, Derrick Jaxn's saga, once again, isn't just about love, betrayal, or scandal. It's about the fragile illusion of authenticity in a world that thrives on appearances. His story serves as a stark reminder that when words and actions diverge too far, even the most polished brand eventually collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. Recently, a video and story began circulating online that caught my attention, but after some digging, it turned out to be completely baseless. In short, the claims were false. However, when blogger Tasha K released her version of events, things took a more compelling turn. She alleged that Derrick Jaxn had fallen for a new social media influencer. Though her name wasn't revealed, photos and clips appeared to show the two spending time together in Paris. Rumors even suggested that Derrick purchased her a new home, despite his divorce still being finalized. While I've previously discussed this rumor in detail, I want to shift the focus to something more meaningful: the image Derrick Jaxn continues to build online and what that reveals about his true intentions and character in the world of social media.
Treat her like that. They said his girlfriend cheated and got like a whole baby with some other man, and he was out online. I didn't see the live or whatever, so I don't know if it's true, but he was crying about it and heartbroken that his girlfriend did him like that. And I'm like, okay, that's Janae is God. Janae is God. It's coming out.
Derrick Jaxn recently shared a story that, ironically, mirrored his own behavior, describing the very pattern of deception and emotional harm that he himself has been accused of. He spoke about men playing with women's emotions, breaking them, and then watching them walk away. Yet the irony is hard to miss. He was, in many ways, describing his own actions. It's unsettling how he seems to analyze his wrongdoings publicly while profiting from them, turning personal accountability into content. Jaxn, who built his platform on holding men accountable, has often struggled to extend that same standard to himself. In a candid reflection, he explained that his aggressive affection in past relationships often stemmed from a desire to hugging or embracing his partner in ways that, he admitted, sometimes made her shut down emotionally. Feeling rejected, he sought validation elsewhere, first through innocent conversations with other women, which soon crossed boundaries entirely. He recounted how, during his time at Tuskegee University, his relationship with his then-girlfriend and future wife, Derrick, became strained due to her trauma and discomfort with intimacy. Instead of addressing the issue maturely, he chose infidelity. What makes this more concerning is that he continued this pattern for years, cheating throughout college, marrying her, fathering two children, and still being unfaithful again after fame and success, rather than walking away from a relationship that no longer met his needs. Derrick chose deceit and manipulation. His actions revealed a deeply selfish streak, one that many have called emotionally abusive. Over time, he seemed to gaslight and control his wife, shaping her perception of reality until she could hardly recognize herself outside their relationship. The public nature of their downfall exposed the extent of his manipulation, something evident even in her social media posts and captions during their most turbulent moments. While publicly condemning unfaithful men, Jaxn was secretly living the same double life he warned others against. When his hypocrisy was finally exposed, his brand and business began to crumble. The same internet that once praised him turned critical, with countless creators analyzing his behavior and dismantling his carefully built image. What stands out most isn't just the cheating, it's the performance. Derrick Jaxn wasn't simply unfaithful. He commodified morality, weaponized vulnerability, and preached accountability without ever practicing it himself. His story serves as a stark reminder that charisma and insight mean little when one refuses to live by their own advice. He's apparently even more controversial than Derrick Jaxn himself. In response to criticism, Derrick commented with his signature mix of charm and subtle shade. "Damn, I can see why you never showed your face all these years. Lol. Shout out to your confidence, big bro. So inspiring." That comment alone showed his knack for passive-aggressive roasting, slick, sharp, and calculated. You almost have to admire the delivery, even if the intent is clearly to jab. For someone as built and image-conscious as Derrick, it's surprising how quick he is to play intellectual games online. Physical strength, it seems, doesn't always translate to emotional resilience or so. He followed up with another message, mocking the same critic again. "Your confidence to show your actual face is inspiring. That should be your new career, teaching people how to love themselves no matter how they look." Then, he tried to position himself as the one who's winning, bragging about his new lifestyle, his fan support, his relationship with a 10 out of 10 model, and life in a mansion. The irony, of course, is that this kind of posturing only reveals how fragile his confidence really is. When someone feels compelled to announce that they're thriving, it often means they're trying to convince themselves as much as everyone else. Still, Derrick's comment about growing support is worth unpacking. He's acknowledging a shift in his audience after years of public scrutiny. Some people are still standing by him, while others are drawn to his apparent comeback story. It's a classic redemption narrative, but the question remains, is this genuine growth, or just another performance designed to regain influence and repair his brand?
Remember Derrick Jaxn, the content creator who got exposed for cheating on his wife like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember. He made a video which I unfortunately found myself agreeing with, so instead of stitching it and giving him any more attention because he truly irks me, I'm gonna just have to make a video about him.
Now, this woman made it clear that she doesn't support Derrick Jaxn or condone his actions, and that's completely understandable given his history. However, there's another layer to her stance that's worth noting. While she openly disapproves of his behavior, the conversation around him has become so complex that her perspective reflects a broader tension, the struggle between condemning someone's actions and acknowledging the cultural influence they still hold. In other words, she rejects what Derrick Jaxn did, but she's also pointing to the complicated space he occupies in public discourse, a figure both criticized and, oddly enough, still discussed.
Video, he was saying that a lot of times when a woman is single for a long time, men or sometimes even other women will look at her like there's something wrong with her, when a lot of times that woman is just very smart. And he's 100% right. The longer that you go without a man, the clearer you start seeing things. And the clearer you can see, baby, the worse it is. But no, seriously, when you stop operating from a place of, oh, I need a relationship, I need a man, and you start really looking at these men for who they are and what they have to offer and what they can really bring to your life, the quicker you will start to realize that a lot of them are just not worth all of what we thought that they were.
This woman made a point that cuts right to the heart of Derrick Jaxn's enduring influence. She admitted she doesn't respect him or his actions, but she still finds value in his message. Why? Because his words resonate with a particular audience, single women who want to hear affirmations about love and what they deserve. The irony, of course, is that Derrick doesn't live by the very principles he preaches, yet he understands marketing psychology better than most. If he keeps repeating what people want to hear, new followers will continue to appear, especially those unfamiliar with his past. And many of his old supporters will simply forgive or forget. This pattern isn't new. It mirrors what we've seen in certain influential religious figures like Pastor Jamal Harrison Bryant, who, despite multiple public scandals, continues to thrive by appealing to emotion and telling audiences exactly what comforts them. Over time, charisma and repetition drown out accountability. One of Derrick Jaxn's old text messages to his wife perfectly captures his manipulative mindset. He wrote, "Whether suspected or confirmed, if you plan to reach out or reply to any woman associated with me about dealings outside of our marriage, you come to me first and we both agree that it be the right thing to do. If we don't agree, you don't respond or reply to anything." In other words, even when caught cheating, Derrick tried to control how his wife reacted. He dictated when and if she could even acknowledge his infidelity, using emotional manipulation to maintain power. It's a chilling example of psychological control, one that shows just how calculated he was. At the same time, he continued building a career centered on condemning the very behaviors he was guilty of, while preaching about honesty, loyalty, and emotional integrity. He lived a life of secrecy, deceit, and hypocrisy. But Derrick knows that perception can be stronger than truth. As long as he keeps creating content that flatters his target audience, he'll continue to rebuild support and profit from it. When critics call him out, Derrick deflects with ego and bravado, boasting about his mansion, his 10 out of 10 model, and his thriving platform. Yet those claims only mask insecurity. Real confidence doesn't need validation through status or appearance. What's really happening is that Derrick feels exposed. His empire of image is cracking, and each critique forces him to defend not just his reputation, but the illusion he's built. The larger issue isn't about petty insults, online jabs, or the endless back and forth that fuels social media drama. It's about something far more fundamental: integrity. Derrick Jaxn built his entire brand on the promise of accountability, honesty, and moral guidance. For years, he positioned himself as the voice of reason in a digital space often filled with confusion and emotional chaos. He became the man who told women what they deserved, who told men how to be better, and who wrapped every message in the language of growth and self-respect. But when the truth finally emerged that he was living in direct contradiction to his own words, the foundation of his entire persona began to crumble. What makes this fall from grace so significant is not simply that he failed. Everyone is capable of failure. It's that he built a public identity rooted in virtue, while privately nurturing deception. When someone preaches discipline but practices indulgence, or sells accountability while living without it, the hypocrisy isn't just personal, it's systemic. It erodes public trust. It turns mentorship into manipulation. And when such a figure is finally exposed, people don't just lose faith in him, they lose faith in the very ideals he claimed to embody. Calling that out isn't hate, it's justice. It's the collective demand for authenticity in a culture that rewards performance over principle. Derrick Jaxn's story reminds us how charisma can so easily blur the line between sincerity and showmanship. The right tone, the right lighting, the right choice of words, all of it can make deception look like truth. The deeper tragedy lies in how audiences, hungry for guidance, often forgive what feels familiar. We mistake relatability for reliability. We defend the flawed messenger because their message comforts us. But when influence becomes more valuable than honesty, truth becomes the first casualty. Integrity can't survive in a world where reputation is currency and repentance is just another form of rebranding. In the end, the Derrick Jaxn saga is less about one man's moral failings and more about a collective reckoning how easily we're swayed by charm, how quickly we excuse contradiction, and how dangerously we confuse image with integrity.